I'm going to start here from Google just to remind you of how to get to the Think Again webpage. So quickest way is just to Google Think Again Scholarship UCD or UCD Think Again Scholarship. And let's go to here. So you have access to all of this information on the webpage. So for that reason, I'm going to skip down to how do I apply? The first thing that I would ask you to do is to ensure that you have read that privacy statement for applicants to Think Again 2026 to make sure that you know what is going to be asked of you in terms of your personal information and that you're happy with how that personal information is going to be treated. So let's continue on down then, assuming that you've done that, to accessing the application form. And in order to do that, you click on this link. So just to show you how you get to that point, I'm going to log out of my account. So if you click on the link, you will get to this page. For people who already have a UCD Think Again account, whether that's because you're already a student or you've already made an application, you can log in here if you have this information. If not, you can go down here to IT Help Desk and get help. And you'll see here that there's a form to contact IT support and a phone number that you can ring so that you can get access to UCD Connect to make your application. So let's go back to here. I'm going to log in as a student. And this is a nice way of seeing what you'll be asked to submit as well in terms of the information. Then hopefully you'll be familiar with having to do some authentication on your phone. But if this is not something that you're familiar with, IT Help Support will be able to advise you. Okay, so at this point, you're logged in, and let's just start from here. So you're going to be looking for your SysWeb. Okay, we'll just get logged in one more time. Sometimes that will happen if you log into the system and then you're going to go into another part of it. Sometimes it might ask you to log in again, or sometimes it will let you just go straight through. So don't worry too much about that. Okay, so then I'm going to go to applications. And we're going to look at Cothram na Féine scholarship applications, as the Think Again scholarship comes under the umbrella of Cothram na Féine. So you will see here at the moment, the only Cothram na Féine scholarship that's open is the Think Again scholarship. Depending on the time of year that you apply, this might be different. So please make sure that you're looking out for the Think Again scholarship. Okay, if you have already started an application, this is a message that you're going to see to say that you've already started. So you need to go back to applications and my applications. So I've already started an application using this account. That's why it's making me do that. So for those of you who start an application, take a break and come back to it. It's good to know that what you do in that situation is you click on applications and you enter my applications. So then let's edit this one. So I'm going to skip over that bit because that is, and what will happen at the top of the page is that the information that you have on file with UCD, whether that's your address, your phone number, your email address, that will all be already kind of populated into the form for you. So that's one really handy part of this, is that you don't need to resubmit your address, your phone number, email address, any of that. That will already be, what's already in your account will already be populated into that. So let's go ahead and answer the questions. I'm going to go through these sections section by section. I'm not going to read all of the instructions out loud because you can read them yourself as you're going through, but I will explain aspects of the questions as we go along. If there is anything that you're still not sure about, you will see that there is an email address that you can contact. That's thinkagain@ucd.ie, and that's listed multiple places throughout the form. In case you have any issues, you can contact thinkagain@ucd.ie and we'll be able to help you. So just one thing to draw your attention to is you do need to click Save and Return at the bottom of this page to save your progress. So I'll just show you, it's down here. It's this Save and Return button. So that means that you can start your application, leave it, come back to it. But if you just X out of the page, it won't save your progress to date. So that's just something to watch out for. So as I said, the first thing that you need to do is you need to read the Think Again privacy statement. So here you're asked to indicate that yes, you have read the privacy statement. If you say no, we cannot process your information. So even if you do submit, fill in the rest of the form and hit submit, unless you've said that you're happy for that information to be processed, then we won't be able to do anything with anything you submit after that. So let's look at part one, which is applying to UCD. These statements are to do with your eligibility for the Think Again scholarship. So if you say no to any of these, it is unlikely that you will be eligible for Think Again. So it's a way of doing a bit of a check on whether you can think that there's a reasonable chance that you are the person who's been targeted for the Think Again scholarship. So what we're asking you to do is to indicate if you are age 23 years or older by saying yes or no. So we'll say yes. And just to note that if you are applying for a part-time course, such as the Access course or Open Learning Progression Pathway, you may be age 22 because you will be 23 or over when it comes to applying for full-time study. So that's just for the Access course or the Open Learning Progression Pathway. In relation to your gender, sex, we treat them as the same in this case. So it's whether you identify as female or as a woman, and you need to select yes, because this is a scholarship that is for mature student women coming from households on a low income. And that's where we get is referenced in the next question, which is you need to confirm that your household income is €50,840 or below. But you will see here that the income limit is different if you have, depending on the number of dependent children that you have. So you can see there that if it is the case that you have, say, between 4 and 8 dependent children, the limit goes up. So again, you want to be saying yes, that your household income does fall below that limit, that you have been resident in the Irish state, EU, EEA, UK, or Swiss Federation for 3 of the last 5 years. There are other options for students who have not been resident in Ireland or any of these other jurisdictions for 3 of the last 5 years. And you can check the UCD website for this, the main one probably being the Sanctuary Scholarship, or you can contact your program directly. But that is an important one, that you have to have been in Ireland, the EU, EEA, UK, or Swiss Federation for 3 of the last 5 years. And then the last one is that you're eligible for free fees. If you are not sure if you are, now would be a good time to check that. So you can check that on the Higher Education Authority website or by contacting UCD directly. Part-time students, this doesn't apply to you. So you can say or yes or no. It's not going to make any difference because this doesn't apply to part-time students. Okay, so we'll move on then to education to date. So this is in relation to your status as a mature student. So as I mentioned already, the Think Again scholarship is a scholarship for mature student women coming from households on a low income. So you do need to be a mature student when you begin or when you began your studies. So as I mentioned, for part-time students, you may be age 22 or over, because then you'll be over 23 by the time that you progress to full-time study. But this piece is important. So you may be 23 now, but in the 3rd year of your program or something like that. So that doesn't apply. You need to be a mature student at the point of entry. There may be some of you who began a course in higher education at level 7 or above, for instance, in GCU, for example, but you didn't finish the course. As long as there's a gap of 3 years or more between when you left that course and when you begin studying UCD, then you can still qualify as a mature student. So that's fine. If it is the case that you already have a degree from a university, it is unlikely that you will be qualifying as a mature student, and therefore it is unlikely that you will qualify for Think Again. So if you have any questions about that, again, you can email thinkagain@ucd.ie and feel free to ask. But if it is the case that you already have a degree, it is unlikely that you will be eligible for Think Again. Then what we want to know is the program that you are going to be beginning study in September, or that you're already studying. So it could be psychology, could be any number of courses. So you just need to pop the name of either the name or the code of the undergraduate program that you are currently studying or that you plan to study in September. Just note, this is your UCD program of study. So if it is the case that at the moment you're in a further education and training college or engaging with community education provider, we don't need to know the name of that course. We need to know the name of the course that you are going to be studying in UCD. But this is where then we get to how you got here. So lots of you will be saying through the mature student pathway, but we do also accept applications from students who have come from a QQI, further education and training college, who've graduated from the access course to full-time study, who've completed an open learning progression pathway. For those of you who are studying part-time, this will likely be through a direct application to UCD. If you say none of the above, if none of the above apply to you, please do contact Think Again at ucd.ie just to verify that your entry pathway is eligible, or we'll be able to talk about that. The next section is about your life and experience. So with regard to this section, there are students, groups in society who we know from the results of the National Access Plan are underrepresented in higher education, or the number of students in UCD doesn't reflect the number of people in that group or with that background in society in general. So that's why we are particularly interested in applications from people who have this aspect to your experience, or you belong to one of these groups. You do not have to tell us this, so you can select prefer not to say, but I do just want to draw your attention to this sentence, which is that we do, for the last number of years, we have gotten more applications for Think Again than we've had scholarships to award. So when there is competition for scholarships, we will be looking not only at your income level, but also who reports being a member of one of these groups or having this aspect to your experience. So you do not need to tell us any of these things, but when it comes to awarding the scholarships, we will be looking for people who have this aspect of their experience or who are members of these groups. Okay, the next section is to do with your income. So as I've said, the Think Again scholarship is for mature student women coming from households on a low income. So here's where we ask you about that background. One important thing to note is that this is to do with your financial situation in 2025. So looking at your total household income earned from employment in 2025, let's say that that was 20,000 euro. And that income was earned by me and my partner. Do I have any other income, for example, maintenance or rental income? None. Am I in receipt of a scholarship already? Let's say yes, that I am, and then I'm going to give the name of this scholarship. So for those of you maybe who are already in UCD, you may be already on a Cathair na Féine scholarship. One thing to note is that students can only be in receipt of one major scholarship at a time. So if you are in a Cathair na Féine scholarship and you want to keep that for whatever reason, you won't be able to get the Think Again scholarship as well. This might be more relevant to maybe people who are in a 1916 bursary and you decide that you want to keep that instead of the Think Again scholarship. It's completely up to you, but you can't have both. And then the final part is in relation to your statement of motivation. This is when you tell us why you are applying for Think Again. So the first question is, why do you want to study in UCD? Obviously, this is just a short answer to give an example of what you can include, but we would be looking to you to include information about why you chose the program you did, why you chose UCD, what your experience has been like so far maybe, or why did you choose UCD before you started? So you tell us there, and please be as honest as you want to be. We are really interested in why it is that you want to study in UCD, and also why is now the right time. So for some people, that might be because their children are in school, so they're able to engage with study full time. It might be because there's a health issue that's now being managed. There could be any number of reasons, but we're, again, really interested to know for you, why is it that now is the right time for you to study in UCD? And then the final question is, what would it mean to you to have a qualification from UCD for now and for the future? So you can tell us a little bit about that there. Okay, so now we've gotten to the bottom of the application form for this part of it. If you would like to, we would love to know how it is that you heard about the Think Again scholarship. So this might have been at a student experience day, for instance. It might have been from the website. It might have been from a current Think Again scholar who told you about it. It's not a requirement. You don't have to answer this question. It won't be considered as part of your application, but we'd be very grateful if you would answer that question. And then you hit save and return. All of the answers that you've given are all listed here. So you can review what you've said, make sure that you're happy with all of it. And then here is where you submit your documents. So let's remove this one for the minute. Okay, and so here's the information about the documents that you need to submit. If you have it, we would really appreciate your 2026-2027 Susie Award letter. That's our preferred document that you would submit, and all 3 pages of it. If you don't have your Susie document, but you are applying for Susie, you can submit some financial documents as placeholders, and then you can send us your Susie letter later on. If you know that you're not eligible for Susie, and maybe because you're studying part-time, that's when you can submit a statement of liability from revenue, or a summary of payments from the Department of Social Protection only. But if you have it, we would love to get your Susie letter as the main one. So you're going to hit upload, choose file. And so then, well, let's say your Susie letter. And then upload. It gives you a list of all of the documents that you've uploaded. At this point, if you're happy with all of the statements here and you agree with all of those, you can hit submit. One thing to bear in mind is that at this point, all of this information is saved, but until I hit submit, that application is not actually completed. So you'll still have access to it, and it will be on the system, but until you hit submit, it won't actually be submitted for consideration for the Think Again scholarship. You should get an email from Think Again at ucd.ie within 2 days of submitting, 2 working days of submitting your application. So if you don't get an email, it's worth checking that you definitely have hit that submit button and that it's not just in your pending applications. Okay? So that is the application form. If you have any questions about how to fill in this application form, again, as I said, please contact Think Again at ucd.ie or check the information that's on the Think Again webpage.